Some background on SyteLine. SyteLine has 30 years of development experience behind it, during the course of which it's been rewritten completely twice to stay with current technologies. As a result, we've been able to carry forward decades of intellectual property and experience in the distribution space and the manufacturing space, and the product as a result is very fully functional for our customers. Just briefly, because we won't be able to touch on this during the demonstration, I wanted to mention that SyteLine can be accessed pretty much from anywhere, from any device. You can have your cell phone, you can use a smart tablet, you can use a computer, you can use an Apple device, of course, barcode data collection across the shop floor. We have portals that extend SyteLine to your customers and to your vendors. This is no longer a system contained within four walls. This is a truly global system that can be accessed by anyone. It is 100% Microsoft technologies top to bottom. It's all .NET, using SQL Server databases, using Microsoft languages such as Transact SQL, C#, VB.NET. As a result, it's very easy to find expertise to help manage your system. Cost of ownership is significantly less because we're using such common components. This is our process flow for today's presentation. I will be stepping us through user navigation, forecast management, how EDI works with SyteLine, e-commerce. We'll get an order through the EDI system, push it through shipping, and into final payment and chargeback processing. Some of what I'll show you quickly in PowerPoints. Some we'll do in live software. I'm sensitive to your time and the fact we only have a little bit of time to cover a lot of ground. So firstly, let's pop into user navigation. And for this, I will use live software. And what you're looking at here is SyteLine version 9. This is our latest release. Throughout SyteLine, we have home pages or dashboards. What you're looking at here is the inventory control dashboard. One of the wonderful things about the user interface of SyteLine is the consistency of the user interface. All the dashboards are laid out the same. You're always going to have links for your role over here on the left, statistics that are key for your area in the right area here. Across the top, you'll have different tabs that will take you to critical information for your role. The idea being, we don't need you to navigate menus. You can stay right here in your home page and pretty much get everywhere you need to get from here. As an example, if I pop into the Navigator tab, you'll notice here a series of sub-tabs, which exposes to the user lots of information regarding his or her role in the company. So if I'm in inventory and I want to see my exceptions, what areas I might have hot items in, or I'm looking for what needs to be cycle counted. With a click of a button, you get to relevant areas of information throughout the software without having to browse through menus or load reports or do other things. It's an incredibly fast, easy environment to operate in. As an example of data entry in the system, let's pop into the inventory environment. This is a typical master file presentation in SyteLine. So in this case, we're looking at inventory. This could be customers, this could be vendors, this could be jobs on the floor, this could be purchase orders, customer orders. All of the presentations in SyteLine look identical. So once you've learned how to use one screen, you've pretty much learned how to use them all. You're always going to have the form in the center here with relevant fields and field labels of the record you're looking at. Off on the far right, you're going to have quick links to associated information. So you don't have to go through some menu to figure out how to find something. Now off on the left, you'll have a grid of all the items or customers that you've filtered for. Now filtering in SyteLine is a very important feature. As you go through your workday, you're often looking for very specific information. You don't want to have to browse through thousands of records to find something. So in SyteLine, I can just hit the filter button, which is right here. I could also hit my F4 key. They both do the same thing. And you can now filter your inventory by any field and any value within a field. So I could come and say, for example, I want to find anything that starts with FA as a part number, hit my F4 key again, and it goes out, searches your inventory system. There could be 1 million records in it, and it comes back with a list on the far left of all the records that matched your filtering criteria. Some of those records may have pictures with them. As you see here, pictures of my bikes. And as you select a record from the grid on the left, that record presents in the form on the right. Again, I can filter by any of the fields, greater than, less than, equal to, not equal to. Come in here and say I want to find everything that starts with CP as an example. And I've got a handful of items that are all having to do with seat clamps and padded seats. One of the most exciting features about what they've done with the user interface here is if I pull the grid aside, the pictures go away, and every record that I have filtered for is a row on your grid. Makes it very easy for you to do things like sort. I can just double-click column, sort ascending or descending. I can move my columns around if I want to see them in a different way. I can do data entry directly in the grid, just like I could in the form. So I can change values. I can add a new record through the grid as I could through the form. I also can take my grid, hit this little Excel button, and whatever set of records I've selected within SyteLine, I can pump these out to an Excel spreadsheet. And now manipulate these in Excel as I may wish. I can change the values here in Excel, and then I can take that record set and I can paste it back into the SyteLine grid. This makes a very easy implementation as you have your legacy data in a spreadsheet that you can dump out of your legacy system. You can cut and paste that data directly into SyteLine through the grid views. You also can do data maintenance in Excel and pump it back into SyteLine. People do that with a lot of things, budgets, mass updates of bills of material, things of this sort. So that gives you a sense here of some of that information. I'll also point out that with every record in SyteLine, you have the ability to attach unlimited notes to that record. So I'll highlight this record. I can now come in here, add a note. I can add a link to a document, a video, a picture. These can then be associated with jobs, customer orders. You can designate that a specific document you've associated with the record will print out with a purchase order, so if it's a spec for a part or a drawing, or print out on the shop floor if it's something that has to go to a job, or print out with a customer order acknowledgement, so if it's terms and conditions. Very simple to attach information throughout the system. I think I'll stop there regarding our user interface. You'll see some other examples of this as we go through the day here. And we'll pop back into our process flow. So the next thing we want to look at now, given our scenario, is the idea of forecast management. You have a part that you purchase and sell or manufacture and sell, and you need to forecast that part and make sure you've bought enough to handle future needs. SyteLine has an incredibly powerful forecast management environment. This is a screenshot of this, but I'm going to go into live software and show you the actual forecast management system. So here we're looking at a part. In this case, it's a cushioned grip for a bicycle handle. The forecast engine takes a look at the prior history of sales or bookings. You can see here in this drop-down, I can look at my bookings in dollars, I can look at my bookings in units, or I can look at my shipments in dollars or my shipments in units and decide which of those I'd like to forecast on. In this case, I'm looking at bookings in units for the last 5 years. If you're just implementing SyteLine, you can import your history of sales or usage of a part. But if you've been using SyteLine for a while, obviously it builds up that information for you. The forecasting engine allows you to then generate your forecast based on multiple forecasting algorithms. So if you're a seasonal environment, if you want to do moving average, if you have a lumpy forecast, You can manually select from any of these options and let the system calculate your future forecast based on the prior year history. Or if, like me, you really don't want to have to think through all those things, you can select automatic selection. SyteLine then looks at the history and runs it through the algorithms and tries to determine which would have been the most accurate algorithm to support the past actuality, and recommends that to you as the best option for your forecast. So in this case, we've gotten seasonal as our recommended forecast algorithm. If we accept that, it will then change the forecast for this item based on a seasonal calculation. Then if we go back to the main screen of forecasting, the values you see down here are based on those seasonalities plus adjustments that you've put into the software for groups or families that this item belongs to. You can now, if you so desire, manually overwrite these forecast items and type in new numbers or accept the forecast that the system has generated for you. The little orange highlight you see here at the beginning of each means that the forecast has been changed, but you haven't saved it yet. So you can sit here and play with it, but you're not overwriting the forecast you had before until you hit the Save button here. At this point, you've now saved that forecast and overwritten whatever your forecast had been prior to this point. You can do collaborative forecasting. That is, I've got my history, but I also want to put into it what my marketing department is telling me, perhaps what some key customers are telling me, what sales reps are telling me, what my managers are telling me. So yes, we've had this sale of this item and this trend in the past, but perhaps now we're starting a marketing campaign and you're telling me that it should increase 20% this year. So you can go into the forecasting screens here and overwrite or add additional input from these departments that will then adjust the net forecast based on your algorithms. If the forecast is not tracking to actual, the system generates alerts, such as what you see up here, not tracking. And it might be difficult to see on the screen, but you see these little T's over in the grid. Every item that has a T is an alert to you that there's a problem with the forecast to actual. You may want to go in and check that item out. Maybe you're selling more or less and you need to take a look at it. There are, of course, reports that will also list that for you. I'm a visual guy. I like to be in the live software when I see this stuff. When you're happy with your forecasts and you're willing to move forward, you just click this button. This will update the planning engine with the forecasts that you've done. So this is important. You can sit here and play in the forecast environment, get input, update the forecast, look at how they're tracking against actuals, but you're not driving your purchasing people until you hit this button, until you update APS. At the time that you update it, then the forecast gets driven into this table here, called the forecast table. And let's go search for that particular item that we were just looking at. And it drops it over here and shows you this is now the forecast that will drive purchasing or manufacturing, as the case may be. You can also see that the system consumes the forecast. Originally, the forecast for this period of April was 28 pieces. There is no outstanding forecast. That means we've taken customer orders for these 28 pieces. We've consumed what was to be forecast in April and in May and part of June. So part of the scenario here is look at how the actuals are tracking against forecast. This shows you that dramatically right now. You can see immediately what the forecast has done. You also can go into the planning engine and see how the planning system has planned for that forecast and your actual customer orders. So this is a classic planning detail screen. Those of you who've used a material planning system would recognize this. It's telling me I'm starting off with 294 on hand. And as I consume quantities, here's a customer order for 15, another customer order, and so on. My actual on hands start to drop. And then as I get down into this area where my forecasts are going to consume quantities, at this point the system is recommending a planned purchase order to replenish the quantity so that we have enough to satisfy our forecast. SyteLine arguably has the best planning engine in the industry. And you'll find it very easy to work with and very easy to plan your forecasted items and replenish them. So you've seen from this scenario here, pop into something else, how SyteLine plans an item for forecasting purposes, the tremendous tools you have at your disposal to adjust that forecast, how we feed it to our planning engine, and how your planning engine lets you know what to build or what to buy. So let's step on to our next scenario item, electronic data interchange. In this scenario, the customer is buying product and selling it to big box stores. Big box stores are going to send an EDI transmission to us to send them a customer order rather than calling into our service department or using our website. SyteLine has a very fully featured EDI system. We handle both the vendor EDI as well as the customer EDI. So we can receive from a customer an inbound plan. We can receive an inbound customer order. It could be a blanket order or a regular order. These things process in the EDI system of SyteLine can appear to you as either a pending EDI order or can automatically flow through to customer orders in the system. On the outbound side, you can send back a verification. We've received your PO, and yes, we're acknowledging the date, or perhaps it's a different date. And then we can send the customer an advanced shipping notice, and of course, an EDI invoice at the other side of this. So if I flip back again into live software, and let's pop into EDI customer orders. So automatically, the system can be monitoring for EDI orders to hit your environment and suck them directly into this table right here. In my example, I've got 2 EDI orders that have come in. I can review that order here, or I can have it automatically post on through to a customer order. Obviously, an EDI order has a header information, who ordered it, general data about that order that came in through the electronic file. Some of these fields default from your customer master, such as who's the salesperson for this customer, what their terms are. And then, of course, the line items that they ordered with this transmission. In this case, there are 2 line items that were ordered. They also could have sent through special instructions. If I hit my notes icon, you can see here that they gave me some special instructions about what to do with this part. Could say virtually anything at this point. If you're doing this manual review, when you're done, a right mouse click lets you post the current EDI order into your order entry system, or you could post all the EDI orders into your order entry system. When you do, you then see this. This is a customer order in SyteLine. The header of the order matches that EDI information. And the line items of the order down here are the line items that came through EDI. Obviously, at this point, you have the ability to modify the order, the due dates, the price, pick up the customer, have a discussion if necessary. It does tell you that this order came in through EDI, so there's no question in your mind where it arrived from. You also can set SyteLine up so that the order prefix is different for all EDI orders. You may make the prefix EDI if you wish, and they'll just be sequentially numbered thereafter. From here, you can print out a quick order verification. If the customer's EDI profile is set up to send order verifications via EDI, then printing this order verification will automatically transmit to them an EDI order. Very simple. You don't need to be an EDI expert to work this. The magic happens with the translation of the incoming EDI transactions and the outgoing EDI transactions. But once you're in the user interface here, this is very, very straightforward. Keep in mind that when an order then hits the order entry system, it consumes the forecast that you saw over here. So if I get an EDI order in the month of July for 10 pieces, the system will automatically consume 10 and show that I only have 5 remaining. A comment, you see 3 decimal places on these. I just exposed that as a feature of SyteLine. You determine how many decimal places you have for that part. This could actually go to 5 decimal places or no decimal places. So obviously for some parts, you sell them only in whole units. Other things, maybe you sell a fraction of a sheet or a portion of a gallon. That's all completely kosher. I'll also mention, you'll notice the unit of measure over here. SyteLine has complex unit of measure conversions. So you can buy an item by the case, stock it by the box, sell it by the each, or any fraction thereof. You can set up your own unit of measure conversions for unique items. And of course, there are global unit of measure conversions, like there are so many ounces to a gallon, so many inches to a foot. Okay, so let's take a look at the shipping process within the system. You've taken this customer order, and now you're ready to ship that order. SyteLine has 2 different shipping environments, but for distribution purposes, I'm going to talk about the more complex of the 2. We call it pick, pack, ship. Pick, pack, ship allows you to have a very high volume of shipping goods daily. And pick at the beginning using this pick workbench, what is it I want them to pick to ship today? I pop back into live software here and open up my pick workbench and just unfilter it to give you guys a sense of this. So I could have hundreds of line items of orders that need to be shipped today. These line items all show up in SyteLine's intelligent grids. What's an intelligent grid? Well, you saw it. I could sort this grid. I can move line items around. I could also filter this grid. So if I only wanted to see orders for a specific customer that are ready to ship. So I want to pick just for that customer versus all customers. And I could say, yeah, pick this one and pick this one and pick this one based on perhaps inventory availability, phone calls I've received today because I'm back ordered. However you want to approach this, you can determine intelligently what items you want to fulfill. I could select everything if I'm in a lucky situation where I always have enough goods to fulfill every order. Of course, it will only ship, or we only pick the orders where we really have inventory, and that's all you're seeing here. You can have this filtered to potentially only those things that have inventory. And you see that here in the quantity ready column. This is telling me I do have these 10, but I don't have this one. So I could filter this where the quantity ready is greater than 0, and then only put those orders into my picking queue. When I talk about the picking queue, what happens next, once I've designated what I want to pick, you can print out a pick list report and hand that out to the folks in your warehouse, letting them know these are the goods to pick. That pick list report can be across multiple orders and sorted by stock location, so you can get out there and do wave picking across the floor. And our pick, pack, ship environment fully supports multiple types of picking wireless devices. So what you're seeing here is this order on a wireless device. Where am I going to pick it from? How many do I have to pick? And all the user has to do is go find it, put it in a basket, and say process. At that point, it will designate automatically that those goods have been picked. They're moved to a packing location. They're still in your inventory, but they're reserved now to the customer order and cannot be pulled or used on another customer order without unpicking them first. So you solve the problem of multiple people potentially trying to pick the same item for multiple orders. You can only be picked for one order, reserved to that order, and shipped to that order, and those steps would have to be undone if you wanted to send it to another order. Then we go on, once it's been picked, we want to tell the software how we packed it. So we'll pop back in here to live software again, and we'll open up the pack confirmation screen. So now, see, did I pick the right one? I did. Okay. No, I did not. Let's clear that out. Actually, I could have used that one. So now I can see for this particular order, I've got 2 line items of the order, 35 each. They've been picked. I can now come over here and say, well, okay, I'm going to put some quantity in a box. And as I do that, it will build boxes for me down here. And based on the weight of the box that I've put in, it'll show me the weight. And in this case, I may have 2 boxes. I haven't put the weights in yet. I could put 35 in each box, maybe 50 in one box, and the other remainder in a smaller box. And this basically builds my shipment for me. At any point in time when I'm done doing that, I can print my packing slips for the shipment, and I can print my package labels. We use Bartender labeling software, which is the world-leading labeling software, fully integrated to this environment. So you can design your own package labels. They can pull data elements from any part of SyteLine onto that package label. Of course, we can print 3D labels, 128 barcodes. All of those forms are supported here. And then once you've packed the item, then you're going to go over to the shipping screen. This is the shipment master. This fully integrates with UPS and FedEx. So you can turn to your WorldShip terminal at this point, put in the order number. It's going to pull all the data from SyteLine, show it to you in WorldShip, let you do shipping from WorldShip. If you have labels you'd rather print from WorldShip, that's obviously kosher. And when the WorldShip transaction is complete, it feeds back this information to us. What is the tracking number? What was the pickup date for this item? Any freight charges are going to be fed back automatically from WorldShip to you. You'll notice the buttons in the center of the screen here. You can print on the fly at this point your packing slips, a bill of lading, certificates of origin, and so forth. We support customs invoicing and custom documents, all available to your shipping clerk from one simple screen. He can get much more complex if there's a separate consignor or consignee, someone who gets a different invoice. He can go to the tabs you see in the center there and select different places for those versus what was the default off the customer order. Then when the shipment is done, you would merely click the Send ASN button. This, depending on the customer's EDI profile, will either print a hard copy of an ASN, which is shown here, or will prepare an ASN EDI transmission automatically for you, place it in the outbound queue, so that the next time EDI runs, it will pick that up and send it off to the customer. Again, very simple, clean process, but lots of options as you step through this, lots of ways of managing your shipping environment if you wish to. A comment I'll make to you is SyteLine's user interface, the screen that you see here and all the screens I've shown you, are completely customizable by you as the end users. Doesn't require a special license. We actually ship with SyteLine all the software that we use to develop SyteLine. So you have a full developer's environment, single user license for that. So you can get into these screens, you can move fields around, hide fields, add new fields, put logic behind them, add buttons, delete buttons, change what a button does. All of that's available to you, and if you follow our rules, and this is really important, guys, if you follow our rules when you make these changes, then when you get an upgrade, your changes will migrate forward with the new version or new release of SyteLine. We ship tools that do that for you so that you don't have to be stuck on a current version forever because you've so heavily modified it. Get my mouse here. So we've forecasted the item, we've gotten EDI in for the item, or we've taken an order through the website. We've picked and packed and shipped that item, and part of that process was to generate an invoice for that item as well. So if I now flow down into the AR payments here, SyteLine, of course, includes a full accounting environment. It's a very world-class accounting environment. It's multi-currency, multilingual, multi-site. Obviously, when you're doing AR payments, you can enter a future payment that's just totally open. You could put a payment in against an existing customer order, and when that order invoices, that payment will automatically apply to that existing customer order. You can take one payment and apply it across multiple invoices, even if those invoices are in different currencies. If you're a multi-site or multi-plant environment and you're doing what we refer to as centralized accounts receivable, you can have all of your checks from your customers come to one site and in one screen apply those payments across all of your sites. Of course, we have chargebacks, and I'll be showing that to you in a moment, and payments can come in multiple forms, whether it's a check or a wire or someone walked in with cash. We do all of those things. So let's go in and take a look at processing the payments for this particular order, or any particular order. And we'll go back to live software for this. And we'll open up, I should probably have it open here. No, I don't. So we'll open up AR payments. I should point out, you'll notice my menu off on the side has only the screens that we're using today in this demonstration. The SyteLine menuing system allows you as a user to customize your menu, to make subfolders, and I made one here for Ultra, and I dropped into that folder the screens I was interested in navigating today. So there is, of course, a full menuing system down here under the Master Explorer, where I can see all the modules that I have loaded on my demonstration environment, and I could have found the screens through this, but it's obviously much easier to have them pre-organized for me in this fashion. So we'll pop into AR payments, and I'll unfilter this. I've got no payments in the system. So let's say that our customer, and I can look the customer up, I get a drop-down list, I can do a right mouse click and do a find for the customer, but for sake of expediency, I happen to know it's customer number 1. We sold some stuff to big box central stores, and they sent us a check and payment. So of course, I put in the check date. Is it going to apply to a credit memo? I want to put in the check number, whatever that was. That's fine. And the amount of the check. He sent me a check for $200. So now I want to apply that check to invoices. Typically, your customer's check stub would show the invoice numbers, and I want to go here and do quick application. The quick application screen shows me all the customer's open invoices and credit memos. So you can see here that full list of all of his open invoices and credit memos. But if I just quickly scroll to the bottom, because this is really the one I want to pay. So there's this invoice. The invoice number is 1109. That's what he said on his check stub. And I do want to pay that, but he's paying us short. So the original amount was $216. Let me take away the discount. He got a 2% pen discount, but I'm going to bypass that. And I'm going to apply only $200. So I'm short paying this $216 invoice. So if I apply that, it created the AR distribution for me. It shows me you got a check for $200, and you applied $200. Well, what about the other $16 in change? I need to look again because I didn't write it down. So he still owes me $16.76. Chargebacks right here allow me to come in and say, yeah, I'm going to charge back $16.76 on this particular check. And why am I charging it back? You define the chargeback types. You also define the account in the general ledger that you wish those chargebacks to hit. So if this is perhaps a promotional chargeback, we told the guy, you know, if you buy these in the month of May, we'll give you 15% off or whatever the case may be. If you're not sure, one of the features of SyteLine is on any field that ties to another table, you can right mouse click that field and drill down to find out more information. So I want to know about that promo code. Oh, okay, this is a promotional discount, and there is the GL account that this is going to hit. That's all good and fine. And I accept that as a chargeback, save the record, And now when I post my invoice run, the $200 is going to hit AR, $16 is going to go off to a chargeback account for me, and of course $200 is going to go into the bank. Bear with me one moment. So you saw that we could do an AR payment. We get a quick application screen where we can easily pick the invoices we'd like to pay. The system calculates discounts, and then we'll show you the balance due to apply. And then you can pop into the chargeback screen and pick the chargeback that you wish to apply this to. Okay, that is fundamentally our scenario. We'll cover just a couple of little items here in wrap-up. I apologize, guys. I was trying to find an image that described wrap-up. The only thing I could find was a wrapped-up kitty. I also touched on this earlier, and I do want to stress this. SyteLine is available on premises where you can license the software, put it on your own servers. You can license it and put it on a hosted server in the cloud, or you can get it as a SaaS subscription where you're basically paying a monthly fee and it's hosted somewhere else for you. All three of these options are the same software. So everything I showed you today is still there, whether you're hosted on premises or cloud. We're running the same software in all cases, and our advanced technology is what lets us do that. Obviously today, we could only show you the very narrow scenario, forecast through EDI, through order, through shipment, through invoicing. This graphic tells you a little bit more about what's included in SyteLine, what it can cover. SyteLine goes all the way from marketing, CRM at the start, through engineering a product, through sales order management, through multi-site planning, inter-site shipping, full manufacturing management. It's probably one of the most fascinating parts of SyteLine, how deeply it gets into manufacturing, scheduling, and planning, and supply chain management. We also have a full quality management environment for testing, quality recording, customer complaint tracking, RMAs, vendor RMAs, full configuration management if your product is configurable, and then full aftermarket service management. So if you sell products that you do support for, telephone support, you fix, you send service technicians out to repair in the field, you do swaps, you do rentals, that's all available for SyteLine. It includes a payroll environment and human capital management, HR environment, and then of course a very fully featured, very deep financial management system with multiple GL books, consolidation across multiple sites, automatic elimination of currency conversions, budgeting, standard cost, actual cost, all of that core to the system. So that said,